Hello everyone, meteorologist First and Weather here. Good afternoon on the East Coast. It is 12:38 p.m. and it is the first Sunday of football season, so looking forward to that. This video right here is going to be just a general overview of the pattern of the past couple weeks or so and what we're going to look at over the next couple of weeks. I'll talk about ENSO a little bit and sort of what's been driving the uniquely cool and fall-like weather over the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast over the past 7 to 10 days. This right here, starting out with the good old GOES satellite imagery over the entire contiguous lower 48. As you can see, we have a very well-defined occluded low right here and associated cold front. You can just see nicely the dry air behind that, lack of clouds, some altocumulus clouds forming behind it, as you have cooler and more saturated mid-levels causing clouds to form around 700 to 500 millibars because of that cooler air being invected in. You also do, interestingly, have some smoke and some dust from wildfires up in Canada being invected southward with those strong northwesterly winds on the backside of that occluded low. I can draw that front for you real quick here, just to give you an idea of where things are. So this front passed through yesterday around 18Z over central Virginia. You can see the dew points just fall almost immediately after that front came through. Dew points in the upper 60s in the early morning, and then after that they had fallen into the mid 50s even, leaving conditions downright chilly for many localities by the evening hours. You can also notice some nice little fog right here in West Virginia, some valley fog, some of those cool temperatures overnight causing some fog to develop. And besides that, nothing really too much going on. There's no real big weather systems. A lot of the country is pretty calm and quiet right now. You do have one area of interest down south here in the Gulf of Mexico. This is projected to maybe get a bit interesting here as we go in the next few days. This might turn a bit tropical in nature, but not really looking like that big of a deal. I'll take a closer look at that at the later part of this video as well. Another thing you can see is, yeah, pretty just quiet conditions. No real fall foliage yet in the lower 48. That will start to come a little bit later into the season. And based on just how unusually cool it's been the past couple weeks, I think some areas might start to see foliage start to peak out a bit earlier than usual. So a pretty big contrast from recent years where we've had very warm and mild Septembers, leaving fall foliage to be quite delayed. I think we might buck that trend this year. So looking at the National Weather Service hazards page, this is just a nice little tool where you can see local observations and just to give you a sense of what really is going on with the weather. This right here is not temperature. This shows observed dew points. And so as you can see, dew points well into the 40s, down into near the coast, which is just very, very impressive. Dew point of 43, just about 20 miles west of Virginia Beach. Dew points in the low to mid 50s, stretching all the way down to South Carolina. So it just goes to show you the unusual nature of this air mass. In fact, I think we're in the northern hemisphere right now. The northeast and mid-Atlantic is the coldest area in terms of anomaly. That will show nicely here on this plot. If we go to anomalies really quickly, you can see that for September 8th, um, in the North America region, we are the most below average relative to normal. So nice little taste of fall here, that's for sure. If we look at the Climate Prediction Center temperature analysis for the past 7 days, this is starting September 7th, you'll see that temperature anomalies over the past 7 days have averaged out to be anywhere between -2 and -4 degrees below normal. So again, just goes to show you the impressive nature of this cold season snap, and it's starting to show the progression as we transition from summer to fall, officially 8 days into meteorological fall, and it's come a bit early this year, that's certainly for sure. So what's the cause behind this? As we look at the upper area of the maps, this right here is the 6Z September 8th GFS run. You can see a nice big trough here on the East Coast, associated ridge on both sides. And before, this trough really wasn't that amplified, but we had this amplifying ridge in the Atlantic and the Rossby wave propagation causing this trough right here to also amplify. And so as that ridge in the Newfoundland area amplified, this trough really dug down, cold front dug down, and nice, cool, dry air came all the way from Canada. You can see the contours here, a lot of convergence here at 500, so the associated strong high pressure really pumping down in cooler air, drier air, and keeping things very quiet and sunny for a large portion of the U.S. And that's essentially what's over the eastern coast right now. As we go through time, the trough swings further down. This is where we are right now. Nice little upper level low showing up right over the Canadian-New York border. This is for later tonight. And then that slowly swings through, and then as you can see, a ridge builds in Canada. So while the cooler weather with highs in between 5 and 10 degrees below average will not last for too long, I think by Monday and Tuesday we'll start to see temperatures rise to near seasonable levels. Still not quite above average, but near seasonable. So again, a short-lived cool snap. Nice little omega block here taking place with an associated cutoff low to the south. That might keep things relatively stormy and unsettled to the south here. As you can see, the GFS does show some unsettled weather over the southeast and southern U.S. with that cutoff low. If we look at anomalies, however, you can see that nothing really too significant over the east coast, especially the mid-Atlantic. But you can see very, very above average temperature anomalies over Canada and the northern U.S. associated with that ridge. And that should really start to take shape as that ridge propagates to the east, basically as we go into Monday and Tuesday. Now, if we go further in time, you'll see that temperatures in the mid-Atlantic really just stay relatively seasonable between varying shots of cool air, varying shots of above average conditions. Most of the above average temperature anomalies will be confined in northern Canada. This ridge here is looking very impressive. Temperature anomalies anywhere between 20, maybe even 30 degrees above normal in parts near the Hudson Bay. A 579 decameter ridge in mid-September is very impressive. And so that goes to show you the very big temperature anomalies we're seeing in Canada. And that finally, that the GFS does show that ridge slightly propagating to the east, but just really just stays in place. And then shows another cool shot developing. This, of course, is way down the road. This is just model noise at this point. But it gives you the idea that we're in a pretty, pretty fluctuating pattern. We'll have some cool shots, some warm shots, temperature rises, temperature falls, etc. We can look at the GFS ensemble model to get a better picture of what's going on and get a more confident look at what the pattern will be over the next few days at least. So the GFS ensemble shows a pretty similar picture here. Trough moves out. Ridge builds in to the north in Hudson Bay, delivering very warm conditions for much of Canada, while conditions remain relatively mild to right around average for the mid-Atlantic, with highs in the mid-80s and relatively lower dew points. That continues then, and then the model just goes into this rather plain sort of pattern here with ridging near Hudson Bay. That's been a very consistent theme. So I think well above temperature anomalies will continue for Canada with slightly above to seasonal conditions in the southern U.S. And that sort of seems like the pattern for the next 1 or 2 weeks or so. So the trough moves out and then ridge builds in Canada. And if we look at the vorticity map here, this is the 500 millibar geopotential height and cyclonic vorticity. So this is for Sunday, September 8th. That upper level low and that associated trough moves through. Ridge builds, cutoff low develops in the southern U.S. And then after that, things remain relatively quiet. September 14th, 15th, GFS shows a nice little trough hitting the west coast. And then that ridge over Newfoundland just relatively keeps things nice and stable. No big weather systems, no big cold fronts. You might see some storms and unsettled weather here or short waves moving through, but nothing really that big in magnitude, really, it looks like. So now if we switch gears to ENSO, we can take a look at how conditions are progressing over there. Go to analysis tools and look at ocean analysis. Really the first thing that pops out here when looking at sea surface temperature anomalies is the La Nina. Finally, after one pretty strong El Nino year, we're back to La Nina again. 3 of the 4 last years have been La Ninas. And one thing I really want you to take note of is the very warm waters south of Greenland, very warm waters in the Pacific, cooler waters actually near Alaska. And this again is a signal of a negative PDO here. We're seeing those warmer waters west, cooler waters trying to take shape here in the Pacific. That might signal yet another year of record negative negative PDO anomalies, which has been a trend now for the past 5 or 6 years. And that's really been a big factor in keeping winters relatively mild on the East Coast since about 2019 and 2020. You might remember in 2013 and 2014, that winter had very cold conditions over the East Coast. That was, of course, in part due to a sudden stratospheric warming, but also The record positive PDO, or warm blob as it was called, also played a role in keeping things relatively amplified and cooler over the eastern part of the U.S. Now, looking at the La Nina here, it's developing quite nicely. A nice little eastern Pacific focus here, right off the coast of South America. This should continue to propagate slightly westward as we go in time. But yeah, La Nina is looking pretty impressive. Large area of below average temperature or water anomalies for the ENSO 3.4 region. If we take a closer look at the Nina 3.4 index, you can see we've really kind of bottomed out here over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Anomalies now reaching the negative 0.5 to negative 0.6 range, so officially in that weak La Nina threshold. And many models do actually have this going to a weak to maybe moderate La Nina for the winter, peaking right around November or December, and then gradually tapering off after that. Now, one thing I do want to sort of put your attention to is the RONI index, which is a different measure of the La Nina or ENSO state. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. So because of anthropogenic global warming, we do have a warmer base state of sea surface temperatures overall, and that can kind of fudge the official ENSO reading. So a ENSO reading of 0.6 might actually be 0.20 or 0.27 because of the warmer base state. And so right now we're seeing this La Nina condition of negative 0.6, but because the warmer base state, the actual La Nina or the atmospheric response to that La Nina might be much stronger, but is simply being masked because of the warmer state of the waters and the oceans worldwide. And so the RONI index kind of takes that into account by taking an average of the base state and then subtracting. And you can see for the June, July, August period, we were at negative 0.44, while the official ENSO index was about 1/10 of a degree or 2/10 of a degree lower than that. And so that also indicates to me that we do have a pretty solid shot of seeing conditions, reaching weak to maybe moderate La Nina category. I would not be surprised if we see a RONI index maybe negative 0.8, negative 0.9, and that does have significant implications for this winter. Now, taking a look at the tropics, why don't we go there and see what's going on here? We do have one little invest that models are tracking right now. That might turn into a weak little depression or something. Really, again, not a big deal at all. Won't become a tropical storm or anything. But just should bring some scattered storms and unsettled weather to Texas, Louisiana, and the Deep South. And that will eventually progress to the Northeast as it strengthens and develops. We look at, wind field. Some models do have it as a very weak tropical storm. I'm really thinking that this is going to be just sort of a nuisance event, nothing really to write home about, but just some unsettled weather here to keep in mind. And one thing you might also notice is the fact that the tropics have been unusually quiet, at least in the Atlantic. And there's several reasons for that. We don't really know all of them, the exact reason why. But some of the theories include the dry air right now, currently over the Atlantic, the record positive NAO, which is funneled in cooler water temperature anomalies off the coast of Africa, as you can see that little ring of blue surrounding this warmer blob in the central Atlantic. The farther north ITCZ, so conditions have been record wet in the Sahara this year in Africa, and so as a result, the ITCZ is also shifted a bit further to the north. So any tropical waves that are propagating westwards are propagating westwards, but further north. And so in this further north region, there's a lot more dry air, water temperatures are a bit cooler, and there's general subsidence. And so their conditions have really not been favorable to see much in the way of tropical storm formation and these waves to really propagate westward and to strengthen with time. So that has been the reason for the unusually quiet hurricane season. As many of you might know, NOAA is predicting a record number of storms this year. That so far has failed to materialize, but again, all it takes is one storm to make a season very memorable. So of course, please stay tuned and always be tracking the tropics. But right now, the season does look awfully quiet, which is a good thing, of course. But if anything does spring up, I'll be sure to have a video up and going about the latest updates on that. Now, before we close, I'm going to take one final look at some of the models, the long-term modeling for this winter. First, we can go to Tropical Tidbits here, look at the CANCIPS model. back in North America, and just look what they're saying for the winter. Now, with the moderate La Nina, negative PDO, a lot of the models have been very bullish on a very mild and relatively snowless winter for the East Coast. And that is a line of logic that I would tend to agree with right now. I think conditions just are not too favorable for winter on the East Coast. I think they would be favored for the north in the upper Midwest, western part of the country, and also northwestern Canada. Now, there's one really cool resource I want to show you on Twitter here. This is a video by Ben Knoll, meteorologist. See if I can find the plots for you here. Let's see. All right, so it looks like the plots, I'm not able to find them right now, but essentially Ben Knoll does a really cool project where he combines all the model outputs from the main global climate models and then shows what they forecast for much of for basically the entire U.S. during the winter months. Let's see, maybe if it's here. Yep. So this is the European rainfall anomaly for October to December. Let's see. Another big thing is the European climate model has a much stronger La Nina signal in its most recent run. So that also has implications for increasing sort of the La Nina impacts over the U.S. Again, stronger La Ninas tend to be associated with milder conditions over the East Coast. But yeah, so let me show you the CANSIPS model and also one more. So this right here is the European model. If we look at ensemble mean, this is 2-meter temperature anomaly. We look at January, again, very warm over the U.S., cooler over Alaska, very classic La Nina signature. Even warmer for December, shows a very strong sort of Hudson Bay ridge signature here, positive NAO. Very interesting signal for sure. We look at other things as well. We try to look at some of the global blended models. Look at the C3S, which is a sort of an ensemble of the main global climate models. And we look at geopotential height, sea surface temperature, and 2-meter temperature anomalies. We look at the 1-month forecast. You can see here just generally above average geopotential height anomalies. The ensemble mean. Yeah, pretty classic, ridge over higher temp or height anomalies over the southern U.S. And really, it's going to be hard pressed to find below average anomalies anywhere now with climate change. But if you look at December as well, same sort of story. So pretty bullish picture here on a warm winter. If you look at temp anomalies, same story. Just generally milder over the contiguous U.S. For this winter. So yeah, a bit of a rambling video there. Just wanted to talk about the weather a little bit. I'll try to have some more organized videos as we get closer to the season, maybe talk about the winter a little bit. But yeah, just a little update on what's going on over the weather over the U.S. these past couple of weeks and what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you next time.